Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. So again, welcome to our subject. And for today, we are about to discuss the property, plant, and equipment, okay, on the topic impairment. Okay, so previously we have already discussed that in the subsequent recognition of property, plant, and equipment, we should record it using the cost model or the revaluation model. Okay, so for this particular discussion, we will be talking about naman the impairment of this property, plant, and equipment in line with the accounting standard about impairment, which is IAS number 36. Okay, so this is your instructor, Noel Bergonia. So just sit back, relax, take down notes, and if you do have questions, please let me know on our respective chat boxes. Okay, so let's start our discussion about impairment. Okay, so let's first define the objectives of IAS 36, okay, which is all about impairment. So in accordance with this standard, its objective is to prescribe the procedures to be used by entities, okay, in ensuring that our assets are carried at no more than their recoverable amount. Okay, so we have impairment because sometimes our recoverable amount would be lower than our um, costs, or even our previously recognized na carrying value. Okay, so in that case, okay, we will be recognizing later impairment losses in accordance with IAS number 36. Okay, so how do we identify a particular asset that will be subjected to impairment? Okay, so based on paragraph number 8 of the standard, it says there that an asset is being impaired when the carrying amount exceeds already its recoverable amount. So mamaya po we will be defining formally what would be recoverable amount. But in this case, again, if the carrying value exceeds the recoverable amount, then there would be an impairment loss. Okay? Last time kasi doon sa ating discussion sa revaluation model, 'di ba? We have a revaluation surplus if our carrying value is less than our fair value, okay? Which is under the revaluation model. Okay, pero dito sa impairment, we need to check the recoverable amount. So we will be discussing that later. Okay? So to continue with, in assessing the particular assets to be impaired, an entity should assess, okay, at the end of each reporting period whether there will be indication about this particular assets to be impaired. So there will be identifiers that we will be discussing on the succeeding slides, how we can say that there is an impairment. Okay, and if such case that there would be indication of impairment, then our entity should already estimate the recoverable amount to check whether it's lower than the carrying value. So in our assessment of the indications for the asset to be impaired, okay, so we have various sources, such as the external sources and internal sources, okay, which will give us idea that the asset is being impaired. So let's talk about one by one. Ano po ba yung mga external sources and also the internal sources, okay, of an asset being impaired. So first of which, as to the external sources, okay, in accordance with IAS number 36, okay, there should be an observable indication that this particular asset's value, okay, had already declined, okay, significantly over the period of time because there is a passage of time. Okay, so it's either naluluma, okay, it's other than depreciation, of course, naluluma o kaya naman there's a possibility that this particular PPE or asset is already kumbaga unusable in some cases, or even it already decreased its capacity. Okay, so those are some observable indications. Moreover, another external source would be some significant changes with an adverse effect to the entity, that happens within the period, okay, or will take place in our near future, such as halimbawa technological, market, economic, or even legal environment changes on which that entity is operating. Okay, so example na lang po dyan, di ba? So if you are using machine, which is before nung binili mo, that's up to date, no? Pero after, let's say, 5 years, no, there is more advanced technology. So it makes that particular asset na binili mo 5 years ago, no, medyo obsolete na. Okay? Even legal concerns, no? Pag kinasuhan kayo, further na baka ipasala kayo in the future, no? So ayun, no, it would affect, no? It has an adverse effect towards the um future, no, which will also give us an idea that there would be an external source of impairment of that asset. Okay. Moreover, our interest rates, no, in the market increases. So sir, bakit po, anong meron pag nag-i-increase yung interest rates sa market? Okay, or even market rates of return? Okay, since market rates are typically used for computation of present values, 'di ba? So pag tumataas po yung interest rates, the present value is decreasing. Okay, so later one of the components of our recoverable amount could be a present value of the inflows and outflows or relative net inflows of our entity. Okay, so ayun, no, it would cause a decrease in the present value, which is also an indicator that it could affect our recoverable amount. And lastly, no, the amount of the net assets or the carrying amount of it, okay, is more than the market capitalization. Okay, so these are some of the external sources of impairment, okay, or information about impairment, okay, or indication po natin. On the other hand, when we talk about internal sources, okay, there would also be an evidence of obsolescence or physical damage as to the asset. So technically yung kanina, no, some observable indications outside, no, but as passage of time. But in this case, no, evidences are already on the physical asset itself, no. Baka may damage na, pasira na, o kaya naman some part of it are unreplaceable already, then that's an internal source. On the other hand, we have also the kagaya kanina, no, some significant changes, okay, with an adverse effect, okay, that would affect our company in the future. Okay, such as possible, no, restructuring of the business, o kaya naman transferring from one location to another location, okay, or even yung ating particular na company is already experiencing um, losses. Okay, so ayan, internal source of information. And we have also some internal reporting indications, which I mentioned also a while ago. Okay, so those were some of the indicators, no, or sources of our information, which would indicate that there could be as well a an impairment of the assets. Okay, so now let's talk about the recoverable amount. So we have mentioned a while ago that there is an impairment if the carrying value, okay, exceeds our recoverable amount. So right now, let's define the recoverable amount. So recoverable amount is the higher, no, in accordance with IAS number 36, the higher between the assets fair value less cost to sell or cost of disposal and its value in use. Okay, so again, whichever is higher between the two. So when we talk about fair value, okay, so we have defined it already previously under IFRS 13 that fair value are typically the price that would be received to sell a particular asset or to be paid, okay, to transfer a liability, no, in an orderly transaction between the market participant at the measurement date. So remember that fair value is usually coming from the active market. Okay, active market, and there are also other sources of it, no, yung fair value na yan in accordance with IFRS number 13. Okay? So, ayan po. Okay? That's the fair value. When we talk about cost of disposal, okay, so the cost of disposal are incremental costs that the entity had incurred directly to the disposal of that particular asset or even cash generating units. Okay? And take note ha, cost of disposal excludes, okay, finance costs at saka income tax expense. Okay, so that's the cost of disposal. At fair value less cost of disposal will be one of our choices in considering the recoverable amount, no, to be reported. On the other hand, no, the value in use is referring to the present value. Okay? Present value of the future cash flows expected to be derived from the asset or cash generating units. So kanina na-mention ko po no, about the market interest rate, which could be a source of our discount rate for computing the present value. So ito po yun. No? The value in use is the present value which we need to discount the future cash flows using a particular interest rate. So mamaya we will be discussing as well ano po yung interest rate no? Pag diniscuss na po natin thoroughly yung value in use. Okay? So ayan po no, the higher between the fair value less cost to sell and the value in use. Okay? So please take note that once we measure the recoverable amount, it is not necessary that both of the assets fair value less cost to sell, okay, or cost of disposal, at saka yung value in use needs to be determined. Okay, not always necessary. Bakit? Okay, it's because if either of the amounts no are exceeding the carrying value, so pag mas mataas yung recoverable amount, it's either the fair value less cost to sell or value in use kesa po doon sa ating carrying value, that means it is not impaired. Okay? And it is not necessarily to estimate the other amount. Okay? So, kasi itong impairment na to, guys, if you have remembered the discussion under the measurement after initial recognition, it is applicable for both the cost model and the revaluation model. Okay? So, depende sa model kung how it works, but technically, kung paano po natin i-lay down dito sa discussion na ito yung ating impairment, no, it would be applied for both the cost model and revaluation model. Okay, so meron lang some sort of changes mamaya in our example, no, we will be discussing that. Okay, so ayun no, basta tandaan ninyo kapag nag-exceed po yung fair value less cost to sell or the value in use, whatever is present, okay, or even whichever is higher between the two, okay, compared with the carrying value, then there is no impairment already. Okay, so stop impairment testing ka na. Okay, so in technical terms, no, the recoverable amount is determined for an individual asset. Okay? In accordance with paragraph 22, no, individual assets po yung pag-check natin ng recoverable amount. Unless no, this is this assets no does not generate cash inflow or it's largely dependent to other assets or yun po yung binabanggit kanina na cash generating units, which we will be explaining further that one no in our discussion of intangible assets. Okay? So andun po no. So ayan no, take note of this that it's not always no that we will be determining both the fair value less cost to sell and value in use, okay, all of the time. Now, let's proceed po on the individual discussion of the fair value less cost to sell at saka value in use, okay, to understand it further. So for the fair value, no, less cost of disposal, na-mention po natin kanina that the fair value is coming from the active market, okay, or the market participants, no, at the date of disposal. And the cost of disposal are the costs directly attributable to the disposal of that asset. So it is impossible, sorry, it may be possible pala. Ano ba yan? No, pagpasensya niyo na si Sir Noel. It may be possible to measure the fair value less cost of disposal even if no there is no quoted price in active market. Okay, so nabanggit ko na rin po kanina no that there are also other ways in accordance with IFRS number 13 fair value measurement to determine the fair value of the asset. Okay, so it does not necessarily mean na wala pong quoted price sa active market, wala na pong fair value. There are still other alternatives. Okay? So, with regards naman sa cost of disposal, okay, so example of which are mga legal costs, okay, stamp duties that we are paying, and similar transaction taxes. Take note ha, hindi po income taxes, transaction taxes such as, let's say for example, yung um, local government taxes on which you have disposed that asset, no, that's possible. Okay, and also cost of removing the assets, okay, from the place where it is attached, and even some direct incremental costs, no, in bringing the asset okay, into condition for its sale. Okay, so that's cost of disposal. Now, with regards to cost of disposal, any termination benefit. So ano ba yung termination benefits na yan? Those are actually benefits received by an employee, no, based on IAS number 19. Itong discussion na to, you will be discussing this further in IAS number 19. Okay, so the termination benefits are those benefits received by the employee when the entity, no, is offering them, okay, to be not part already of the entity. Okay, so there is a voluntary exit, no, given and allowed by the entity, not to the employee. Okay, so example, mga retrenchment, 'di ba? Yung pagtatanggal ng tao ngayon, okay? It's voluntary. Hindi po kasama diyan yung resigning. So anyways, now you will be discussing that further under IAS number 19. Okay? So the termination benefits or any costs of reducing, no, or reorganizing the business, okay, following the disposal of the asset are not incremental costs directly to dispose the assets. So ang point lang nito, based on IAS number 36, okay, so whenever the problem states that there is a termination benefit and cost associated, okay, na sinama sa cost of disposal, it should be um, excluded, no? Tatanggalin mo 'yon. Kasi nga po, it does not necessarily mean that there is a direct incremental cost to dispose of the assets. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, ha. So pag wala namang sinabi about termination benefit, okay, sige, proceed, no? Cost to disposal or cost of disposal na kasama dito, then that would be deducted to the fair value. Okay? But if there is a termination benefit, tanggalin mo muna po siya sa cost of disposal. So I hope that nasusundan niyo po ako, ha. Okay? So again, kung may question kayo, please let me know. Okay. So that's our fair value less cost of disposal. Okay. So on the other hand, we have naman pa the value in use. So remember in the previous slide, no, value in use is defined as the present value, di ba, of all of the future cash flows, okay, of that particular asset. Now, with regards to this, okay, so in the calculation of our value in use, okay, the entity needs to, of course, estimate, no, the future cash flows expected to be derived from the asset. Okay, kasi magpe-present value tayo, di ba? So wala naman tayong mapi-present value kung wala tayong estimate of the future cash flows. It's whether an inflow man or even an outflow. Now, there is also an expectation that there is a possible variation, no, about the amount at saka yung timing po of that cash flows. Okay, since we are estimating lang yung cash flows po natin. Then, of course, the time value of money, okay, is represented by a risk-free rate of interest. So, mamaya, um, with regards to our discount rate to be used in computing the present value, it should be risk-free. Okay, risk-free rate of interests. Okay, kasi in your financial management in the future, you will be discussing about the risk-adjusted, okay, interest rates. Okay, so again, it will not be used here kasi sabi sa IAS 36, it should be risk-free. Okay, then the prices, okay, uh, sorry, the price for bearing the uncertainty inherent in the asset should also be reflected in the calculation of the value in use. Okay, so that's more on the uncertainty natin, no, na diniscuss sa conceptual framework. Then there are also other factors to be considered. Okay, so those are just some elements, no, which needs to be reflected in our value in use. But to discuss further, no, how to compute this value in use. So technically, based on IAS number 36, no, we have to estimate the value in use based on the cash flow. Okay, number one. So we need to consider the inflows and outflows that would be derived from the continuing use of the asset or even from the ultimate disposal. Okay, so it could be the amount that you are expected to benefit, okay, the inflow, and then yung mga payments mo, okay, about that PPE or asset, no, that could be an outflow. Okay, even from the ultimate disposal. So later in our computation, no, if ever that there would be salvage value or scrap value, then it will be also part of the computation ng value in use. Okay, then we need also to apply the relative or appropriate discount rate po natin. Okay, so ano ba yung appropriate discount rate? So based on IS 36, the discount rate should be number one, pre-tax rate. Okay, so pre-tax. Okay, it should not be after tax ha. It should be pre-tax. Sir, paano yan kung wala naman sinabi sa problem? Then we will assume that that is pre-tax. Unless sabihin that that is after tax, then i-gross up mo siya to arrive at our pre-tax rate. Okay, then it needs also to consider as well the time value of money, no? And at the same time, nabanggit ko na to kanina, no? The risk specific to the asset, okay, which the future cash flows are estimated are not adjusted, or simply it should be risk free. It should not be risk adjusted. Okay? So I hope that that is clear ha. Pre-tax rate and it is risk free discount rate. Okay? So with regards naman po sa cash inflows and outflows na ating kokompyuta ng present value, okay? So the estimates shall include the following: the projection of inflows, okay, from continuing use, the projection of outflows that we are expecting to pay, no, and are necessary to be incurred, okay, to generate the inflows. Okay, so yun nabanggit ko kanina, no, possible maintenance, no, from that particular asset. Okay, so also it can also be included directly attributable or allocated amounts, no, on a reasonable and consistent basis to the asset. Then we have also the net cash flows, if any, no, to be paid or received for the disposal of the asset. So again, this refers to the salvage value kanina or the scrap value. Okay, so I hope that you can still follow how we are just laying down now what are the elements of the value in use and the other components which will be used in determining later the impairment of our PPE. Okay. So after we have identified now the recoverable amount and the contents on either fair value less cost to sell or even the value in use, now let's talk about the recognition and measurement of an impairment loss. Okay, so how do we recognize and measure an impairment loss? So based on our IAS number 36, an impairment loss, no, is an amount by which the carrying amount po natin or the carrying value of the asset exceeds the recoverable amount. Di ba kanina parang yan yung indicator na meron tayong impairment. So pag mas mababa na talaga yung recoverable amount kesa sa carrying value natin or carrying amount, then we need to recognize the impairment loss. Now, this impairment loss, okay, needs to be recognized immediately sa ating profit or loss. Okay, so i-record mo na siya sa income statement or statement of comprehensive income mo unless, no? We have discussed in our previous discussion about revaluation model that whenever you have a revaluation surplus, 'di ba? So the assets being carried at revalued amount and having a revaluation surplus needs to be reversed first. Okay? Bago ka mag-impairment loss. So parang ubusin mo muna yung revaluation surplus just in case na meron pa. Okay? At pag wala na, then saka ka mag-impairment loss. Okay? So medyo dito sa discussion natin, mababalikan natin yung revaluation model. Okay? Since we are talking about impairment. Now, ito yun, no? So any impairment loss for that revalued asset should be treated as a revaluation surplus decrease, no? In accordance with our IAS number 16. Okay? So after the recognition of our impairment loss, okay, so pag na-impair na yung asset, the asset will still continue to operate, di ba? But take note that the depreciation charge that we will apply for that asset from the time after you have identified the impairment loss needs to be adjusted in future periods. So parang babalikan na naman natin yung discussion natin na meron tayong change in accounting estimates. Kasi 'di ba, there would be an adjustment that would happen prospectively. Okay, from the time nakasunod after the impairment, no, moving forward. Okay, and we will allocate that in a systematic basis over the remaining useful life. Okay, so that's our recognition of impairment loss. So we will apply this things na diniscuss po natin, okay, in theory to our problems. Okay, so if you do have questions po, please let me know lang on our respective chat boxes. Okay, so let's start po, no, applying what we have discussed theoretically in our various examples. Okay, so let's start with example number one. Okay, so for example number one, you are being asked of how much is the impairment loss to be recognized and the revised depreciation expense after impairment. So kaka-discuss lang natin sa previous slide, di ba? So let's read the data. Presented below are the information related to machine owned by Cookie Corporation on December 31, 2020. We have the costs, no, on December 31, 2020, ha, 6,750,000. The accumulated depreciation was 1,125,000. And given na po yung fair value less cost to sell. Now, if you will try to determine magkano po yung carrying value natin, 'di ba? Ang carrying value po natin dito is actually 5,625,000. Now, as you have noticed, mas mababa na po yung fair value less cost to sell. So iisipin na natin, ay, there is a possibility of impairment for this machine. Okay? Then sabi po dito, Cookie will continue to use the asset for its remaining useful life of 5 years and having a residual amount of 375,000. Now, the expected cash inflows from the use of this asset is 1,125,000 after incurring a production costs, okay, including the maintenance of 525,000. So parang ito yung inflow, then ito yung relative outflow. So mangyari mamaya in our computation, 'di ba? Sabi po natin, it should be the net of the inflow and outflow. So pagmaminusin natin 'yan mamaya. Okay, and given here is the pre-tax discount rate. So ayun, pre-tax na po siya na 10%. Okay? So first, no, that we need to determine, okay, since alam na natin that there is an indication of impairment, no, let's now identify the recoverable amount. So what is the appropriate recoverable amount on this? So sabi natin kanina, 'di ba, it should be the higher between the fair value less cost to sell, which is 2,400,000 and the value in use. Now, how to compute the value in use based on the data given? So first, no, we have the expected net cash flows from the 1,125,000 na inflow less the production cost, no, na 525,000. So that amount we multiply it with 3.7908. So saan po nakuha yung 3.7908? We use the 10% as the discount rate and it would be on 5 years. So dahil itong inflows and outflows na to are expected to be received, no, every period, okay, then technically you need to present value it using the annuity. Okay, so again that would be 10%. Okay, for 5 years, ordinary annuity po tayo. Kaya 3.7908. Okay, so multiplying it with the net cash inflow, okay, we have the present value for the expected net cash flows na 2,274,480. Okay, does it stop there? No. Kasi ang sabi po kanina in the theoretical discussion, any amount that we are expecting to receive, no, after the useful life of the asset should also be part of our future cash flows. So itong next would be the present value of the residual value na 375,000, since we will be expecting to receive that after 5 years, no, it's not annuity, then we will be expecting that this present value factor of 0.6209 is the present value of single payment using the 10% at 5 years. Okay? So the present value of such was 232,838. Okay, so adding the two present values, then the value in use po natin was 2,507,318. Okay, so right now, we have the fair value less cost to sell and the value in use. So whichever is the higher. Okay, so alin po ang recoverable amount? Ang sagot is yung 2,507,318 or the value in use which is higher. Okay, so are we clear on that? All right, very good. Now, the next would be computing the impairment loss. So we need to compare the recoverable amount na value in use with our carrying value. So na-mention kanina that the carrying value was 5,625,000. Then comparing it with the recoverable amount na mas mababa, thus our impairment loss was 3,117,638. Sir, ganyan kalaki yung impairment loss? Yes. Kaya ibig sabihin, ganyan kalaki yung binagsak ng value, no, nung particular machine. Okay, so how do we record it? So for the impairment loss, it would be debiting impairment loss 3,117,683 and credit accumulated depreciation 3,117,683. Sir, accumulated depreciation talaga? Not necessary. Kasi if your company has the account title na accumulated impairment, 'di ba, in our measurement after initial recognition. So meron tayong nabanggit doon na accumulated impairment. No? If the company has the account title na impairment, then it can use, bakit sulat ko, sorry. Ayan, basta there could also be impairment account or accumulated impairment, then you can use that. Okay? So kasi in our previous company, there are only specific assets that have impairment account, but sometimes if it's not present yung impairment, accumulated impairment natin, then we can use the accumulated depreciation, but you need to put in the notes to financial statement an explanation that that amount is related to impairment. Okay? So are we clear on that? So for consistency purposes, I will just be using accumulated depreciation for impairment, but you can also use accumulated impairment. Okay, so I hope that that is clear. Now, that's our value, no, at the time of impairment, which is on December 31, 2020. Okay, so the next question was the revised depreciation after this impairment. So it's referring actually to the December 31, 2021 na depreciation expense. So just like what we did in our previous na mga discussions, no, it's now based on the new amount. Okay, so the new amount or the new carrying value is our recoverable amount of 2,507,318. So we will be deducting the residual value from it, okay, to arrive at our depreciable costs of 2,132,318. And sabi po sa problem, there is a remaining useful life, no, na 5 years, so divide it by 5, and thus our depreciation expense revised for December 31, 2021 is 426,464. So that's a debit to depreciation expense, 426,464, and we credit accumulated depreciation, no, 426,464. Okay, so I hope that that is clear, ha? Okay, again, if you do have questions, please let me know lang po on our respective chat boxes. So this is example number 1. Okay? So ayan, no, you can pause for it for a while and then proceed to the next example. Okay? So ayan, no, ngayon, let's proceed na po sa ating example number 2. Okay, I hope na masaya ka pang nakikinig, ha. This is our last video lecture, okay, for this PPE series. Okay, so we have now example number 2. So in example number 2, you are being asked to prepare for the journal entries, okay, from 2020 up to 2023. Okay, so in January 2020, Chimi Corporation purchased an equipment costing 1 million. Okay, so the equipment has an estimated useful life, or sorry, residual value of 100,000 and an estimated useful life of 8 years. So 8 years, ang useful life, residual value was 100,000, the cost was 1 million. Now the asset is depreciated using the straight line basis. On December 31, 2022, which is around 3 years after, no, it is apparent that the equipment suffered from permanent impairment in value. Okay, so may impairment. It was determined that the equipment's recoverable amount was 400,000 with the remaining life of 2 years na lang, and the residual value was 40,000. So hindi na tayo magko-compute ng recoverable amount since given na po yung 400,000. Okay? So first, no, in January 1, 2020 or January 2020, you just simply record the purchase of the equipment. So we debit equipment and credit cash. Okay, so that's on January 2020. Now, on December 31, 2020, no, a year after, we need to record the depreciation. So we debit depreciation expense, 112,500, and credit accumulated depreciation, 112,500. So it came from the 1 million na costs minus the residual value of 100,000, then divide it by the useful life of 8 years. Okay? So after this year, no, we have a carrying value, okay, on December 31, 2020 na 887,500. All right. So let's proceed with the next year, December 31, 2021. So again, we depreciate the asset. So we debit depreciation expense and we credit accumulated depreciation 112,500. Okay, so it's similar to the 2020 lang kasi wala pa namang any impairment in that case. However, the carrying value had now decreased to 775,000 na po. Okay, so pababa po ng pababa because of the depreciation. Now, before the impairment happens on December 31, 2022, okay, we need first to depreciate the asset. So, depreciate po muna natin. Okay, so we debit the depreciation expense, 112,500, and credit accumulated depreciation, 112,500. Now, after you depreciate that asset, okay, so it is now subject to impairment, okay, which is, sabi po, we have the recoverable amount na lang po amounting to 400,000. But let us try first to identify the carrying value on December 31, 2022. So nakatatlong taon na tayo, di ba? Na 122,500. So times 3 nyo yan. So the accumulated depreciation is 337,500 na po. Then deduct it from the original costs na 1 million. So the carrying value on December 31, 2022 was 662,500. Okay? So it's higher compared with the recoverable amount na 400,000. That's why we are going to have an impairment loss of 262,500. So our entry for the impairment is we debit impairment loss 262,500, credit accumulated depreciation or accumulated impairment, okay, amounting to 262,500. Okay? So I hope that you can still follow po ha. So that's our entry on December 31, 2022 about the impairment. Now, pag tinanong kita, magkano na po yung ending balance ng ating equipment, okay, at the end of 2022, your answer na po is the remaining recoverable amount natin, which is 400,000. Okay, so to continue, for our last entry in this example, you are asked to prepare the 2023. So a year after, okay, you will be depreciating on December 31, 2023, now using the recoverable amount. So the recoverable amount was 400,000. Then kung napansin ninyo, nagbago rin yung residual value, naging 40,000 na lang. So deducting it, the depreciable cost was 360,000 and Remember, the remaining useful life na lang po was 2 years after that date of impairment. No? So divide by 2 na lang po, and thus our depreciation expense would be 180,000. So we debit depreciation expense 180,000 and we credit accumulated depreciation 180,000. Okay? So any questions po or clarifications? Going once, going twice. Okay, so that is our example number 2. So if you have questions, please let me know lang po sa ating respective chat boxes. Okay? So we're now going to proceed with the next example. Oops, ayan. So by the way, bago tayo magtapos, no, for example 2, may pahabol pa, the carrying value at the end of 2023 was 220,000 na lang po. Okay? Next would be in example 3. So in example 3, you are being asked to record until December 31, 2022. Okay, so let's read the data. So on January 1, 2020, Tata Company acquired a factory machine, okay, that costs 600,000. Now the machine or the machine, no, is being depreciated. The machine was being depreciated using the straight line method over the projected useful life of 10 years. So that's the useful life. Now, wala po kayo napansin na salvage value. Okay, so it's 0. Then on December 31, 2021, a determination was made that the assets recoverable amount was 384,000. So 2 years after, no, nagkaroon ng determination. So later, let's check kung meron ba tayong impairment loss. Then on December 31, 2022, okay, the recoverable amount was determined to be 444,000 and the management believes that the impairment loss previously recognized should be reversed. Okay, so mukhang nagbabadya na i-apply natin yung diniscuss natin sa last slide no theory kanina, that whenever we have a particular na um, impairment, no, we need to reverse it or recover it. Okay, so abangan natin. So let's start on January 1, 2020, okay, at the date of acquisition. So we debit machine 600,000 and credit cash 600,000. Okay, that's easy. Next would be on December 31, 2020, a year after, we depreciate the asset. So we debit depreciation expense 60,000 and credit accumulated depreciation 60,000. So mula doon sa ating asset cost na 600,000 divided by the 10 useful life. So that would be 60,000. Okay, ang galing. Wait lang, edit ko. Okay, 60,000. Next, no, we need to determine how much is the carrying value at the end of 2020. So of course, it's the 600,000 na costs minus the 60,000 accumulated depreciation. So that would be 540,000. Okay. So after that, no, we need to still depreciate it bago natin i-determine kung may impairment loss ba or wala. Kasi ang sabi po sa problem, on December 31, 2021, no, the recoverable amount was 384,000. Okay, so on December 31, 2021, depreciate muna tayo, debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 60,000. Okay, so after that, we will now be computing for an impairment loss, if any. Okay, so let's find out. So the carrying value on December 31, 2021, after considering that there is 60,000, 120,000 na po yung accumulated depreciation. Deducting it from the 600,000 na costs, the carrying value was 480,000. Okay, which is significantly higher compared with the recoverable amount of 384,000. So that's why we can say that there is an impairment for this machine. Okay, the impairment loss was 96,000. So the entry would be debit impairment loss 96,000 and then we credit accumulated depreciation 96,000. Okay? Or accumulated impairment. So, again, no, we have an impairment loss. So our new value to be depreciated on the next years would be 384,000 na po. Okay? So after 2021, no, in 2022, nag-determine ulit, no, that there is a recoverable amount na 444,000. So but before that, we need to determine first the depreciation natin. So on December 31, 2022, okay, our depreciation expense would be 48,000. So saan po nanggaling yon? Mula doon sa recoverable amount ng 2021 na 384,000 divided by the remaining useful life of 8 years. Sir, bakit po 8 years? Kasi 'di ba 2020 and 21. Okay, so at the beginning of 2022, we still have 8 years remaining. That's why it's 48,000. Okay, so debit depreciation expense, 48,000, and we credit accumulated depreciation, 48,000. So nasusundan po ba ako, guys? If you have questions, please let me know lang po to our respective chat boxes. Okay. So after updating the balance of our accumulated depreciation or the carrying value, the next step is to identify whether do we have a recovery ba? Kasi kung mapapansin ninyo, kanina 384, 'di ba, yung recoverable amount. And then biglang tumaas to 444,000. Okay? So let's find out. So as you can see, no, we will be applying the concepts of revaluation here. So let me explain to you saan nanggaling yung entry. So una, no, the carrying amount or carrying value on December 31, 2022. Okay, which is 336,000. So that's the 384,000 in 2021 minus the depreciation in 2022. Okay, or accumulated depreciation. So 336,000. Then as you have noticed, we have the recoverable amount given na 444,000. So there was an increase. Hindi ko muna siya nilagay as revaluation kahit may increase since, remember, meron po tayong previous impairment loss in 2021. Okay, so let's put that muna as increase na 108,000. Okay, now, as to that increase, okay, the first thing that you need to know is that whenever you have previous impairment, reverse mo muna yung impairment na yon. Okay, or i-recover mo muna. Okay, so how does it work, no? Remember that in our previous impairment sa 2021, we have 96,000. Okay? So what you need to do, okay, is to determine magkano po ba yung na-recover. So, in terms of the impairment recovered already, okay, because of lower depreciation, you need to compare. Magkano ba yung original depreciation nung wala pang any impairment or revaluation? Okay? The amount is 60,000, di ba? Yun yung original, yung 600,000 divided by 10. Okay? Then, after nating nagkaroon ng impairment, magkano na po yung depreciation? Ito, di ba? 48,000. So in that case, after there was an impairment, no, there was a decrease in our depreciation expense. Bumaba in depreciation expense. And that is, no, an indication that we have already recovered the previous impairment because of a lower depreciation. Okay, so kaya nakita niyo dito, an impairment already recovered because of the previous depreciation. Sir, 1 year lang ba siya? Yes, kasi 'di ba ang difference lang natin mula doon sa time na bumaba yung depreciation to 48,000 is 1 year. Sir, paano kung 2 years? Eh di times 2 to, no? So magiging 24,000. Paano pag 3 years? Eh di times 3. Okay, so nakadepende yon sa layo mula doon sa naging previous impairment. Okay? So dito, isa lang. So supposed to be times 1 ito, no? Pero same lang, 12,000 po yan. Okay? So, since na-recovered mo na yon because of lower depreciation, okay, there is a limitation as to the recovery. So, hindi ka pwedeng lumampas, di ba 108,000 yung increase. Hindi mo pwedeng ilagay yan as recovery ng previous impairment. Ang limit niya lang po is yung hindi pa nare-recover. Okay, so yung previous impairment minus the impairment already recovered, so we still have the amount of the previous impairment na hindi pa nare-recover because of lower depreciation na 84,000. Okay, so as you have seen, no, mamaya in the entry above, no, there was a recovery na 84,000. Okay, and the excess now of the increase and the recovery po natin will now be charged to the revaluation surplus, no? So we will be applying now our concept of revaluation surplus based on our discussion in the measurement after initial recognition. Okay? So, of course, no, since may revaluation surplus, we need to apply yung ating what? Ayan, proportionate. Kasi hindi sinabi sa problem, di ba? Pag problem is silent, then we would like to use the proportionate method rather than, ano yung isang method? Elimination method. Okay, so let's try to proportionate it. So ito na naman po yung table, no? So the carrying value was 600,000 for the costs. Okay, that's the original costs. Then our accumulated depreciation up to that time was 264,000. So saan nakuha yung 264,000? I-add mong lahat ng ating accumulated depreciation na nadaanan. Okay, from December 31, 2020 na amounting to 60,000, 'di ba? And then ng 2021 may 60,000 and then may accumulated depreciation ka because of the impairment na 96,000, okay? And then ito po 48,000. If you try to add them all, that was 264,000. Okay? So the carrying value was 336,000. Uy, parehas sila dito. Yes, parehas lang, no? But we're just representing the values na nadaanan po natin kanina. Okay? Then the recoverable amount has gone up to 44 or 444,000. So the increase was actually 108,000. So yung increase na yon ipoproportionate natin. Sir, hindi ba yung revaluation surplus lang? Hindi. Yung increase na po na 108,000. Kasi pati yung recovery natin, okay, would cover the amount doon sa ating revalued amount. Okay? So remember for our proportionate method, so yung costs, okay, kunin yung calculator, costs divide by the carrying value na 336,000. Then the quotient of that multiplied with 108, magkano po yung increase sa cost? All right, very good. That would be 192,857. Okay? So wag niyo na pong i-round off ha yung quotient ninyo kanina. Okay, diretso niyo na pong multiply. Okay? Then, as to our accumulated depreciation, you have 264,000 divided by 336,000. Then multiply it with the 108,000. Then the related increase in the accumulated depreciation was, ayan, correct, 84,857. Okay, so that's the increase. So right now, no, to complete the table, kagaya ng ginawa natin sa measurement after initial recognition. So you add the costs na 600,000 and the increase. So the new costs under the revalued column was 792,857. Okay? Then as to the accumulated depreciation, it is now 384,857. Okay? Just add the carrying value na accumulated depreciation na 264,000 and the increase in accumulated depreciation because of the proportionate na 84,857. Okay, so if you try to deduct the revised costs and accumulated depreciation, it would be equal to our revalued amount of 444,000. Okay, so to record our recovery and the revaluation, so we debit the machine, yung proportionate po na 192,857. Then we credit accumulated depreciation, yung increase po natin na 84,857. And then remember, we have 84,000 na recovery. So we credit recovery of impairment na 84,000. Sir, saan po papasok yung recovery of impairment? This will be other income. Okay? Under the P&L po yan, yung recovery na yan. It could be a gain on recovery. Okay? It's an income account. Okay? And then the excess kanina, which is computed as our revaluation surplus na 24,000. So in the succeeding years, we have the revaluation surplus, no, that we will be taking care of. So wala na po tayong kasunod based on the data, but again, the revaluation surplus here would be treated the same way how we have handled it in the measurement after initial recognition. Is there a piecemeal transfer to the retained earnings, or at the end of the life na lang po, or at the time of disposal? Okay? So ayun po yung treatment natin. Okay. So, do you want to know the shortcut for the evaluation surplus? No? Ang dami nating ginawa dito, di ba, na computation. Okay, pero paano pag tinanong po revaluation surplus lang? Paano natin shortcut yan? There is a shortcut and I will be sharing to you the shortcut. Okay, so handa ka na ba? All right, I hope na handa ka na. Okay, so the shortcut is ito. So first, determine, no? Di ba kanina, sa gitna, merong nangyaring impairment. Okay, and then dito sa 2022, nagka-revaluation. So when we try to shortcut the computation of the revaluation surplus na 24,000, ang gagawin mo lang una is as if wala pong any impairment or revaluation. So nakita nyo dito that we have the carrying value without impairment. So just in case na hindi po nagkaroon ng impairment in between, okay, at saka revaluation, so we have the 600,000 na original costs minus the depreciation per year na 60,000. Sir, bakit ganun? Without impairment nga, di ba? So, hindi siya magiging 48,000. 60,000 pa rin. And then 3 years. Bakit po 3 years? Kasi di ba 2020, 2021, tapos ngayon 2022. So, 3 taon na po yung nakalipas. So, kung sakali man na wala ng impairment revaluation na naganap in between, our carrying value was 420,000. Okay? So, yun yung carrying value without impairment. Just compare it with the recoverable amount given na 444,000. And that would give you the revaluation surplus na 24,000. Sir, palagi bang yan yung case? Yes, no? It's proven and tested na ito po yung mas tamang balance ng revaluation surplus, the comparison between the carrying value without impairment and the recoverable amount, okay, on that period being covered. Okay, so dito kung sakali man na hindi 24,000 yung nilagay mo as evaluation surplus, nilagay mo 108,000, so mali ka kasi ang dapat is only 24,000. Okay? So, nakuha po ba natin? Ayan, very good. So, you can apply that if you are asked of the revaluation surplus. Sir, kahit 10 years? Oo, kahit 10 years. So, pwedeng trick kasi yon sa mga examination. Tanungin ka ng 10 years, akala mo mag-entry ka, magre-recompute ka every period. Hindi, no? You can use this shortcut for the revaluation surplus. Okay? So, again, if you do have questions, please let me know lang po on our respective chat boxes. Okay? So, again, no, if you have questions, please let me know lang po. Okay? All right, so we're done with example number 3. So here's now our last problem for this impairment. Now, it will culminate everything from impairment to revaluation, okay, na nangyari. Okay, so medyo mas mahaba to ha, so please bear with me on example number 4, but it will encompass every concept that we have tried to discuss, no, under the impairment at saka yung revaluation as well. So let me read the problem. You are actually asked of the entries, no, from 2019 up to 2021. Or actually 2022 kasi yun po yung ating huling impairment or even revaluation. Wait lang, edit ko lang. Okay, ayan na. So it's 2022. So Koya Incorporated, okay, purchased a delivery truck on January 1, 2019. So at a cost of 1,500,000. Now it is being depreciated using the straight line method over 10 years. On December 31, 2019, okay, a year after, the asset's fair value was 1,687,500. So kung napansin niyo mas mataas siya sa cost. So isipin niyo na, ay, merong revaluation dyan. No? So accordingly, an entry was made at the date of at the date to recognize a revaluation surplus. So tama, no, may revaluation tayo. Now it is the company's policy to transfer a portion of the revaluation surplus to retained earnings every period. So magta-transfer na naman po tayo. Now an impairment was detected on December 31, 2021. And the recoverable amount of the asset was determined to be 1,010,625. Oh, ang sad. Kasi dito, nag-increase and then biglang nag-decrease. Yung kanina sa previous example number 3, nag-decrease and then nag-increase. No? So ngayon, increase, then decrease. Okay, and also on December 31, 2022, the fair value of the asset was determined to be 1,095,000. So most likely baka increase ito, no, kasi mas mataas siya dun sa previous recoverable amount. So increase, decrease, increase, no? Ang saya-saya. So abangan natin yung mga entries, no, related to this. So I hope that you are listening there and take down notes about this discussion because it encompasses everything that we have almost discussed about impairment and the revaluation. Okay. So first, we record the entry at the date of purchase. So we debit on January 1, 2019, delivery truck, and credit cash. Okay, so that's the entry to record the purchase. Then on December 31 of the same year, you need to recognize the depreciation. So based on our data, okay, we have a cost, no, of 1,500,000 and 10 years useful life. Wala po tayong any salvage value. That's why we do not deduct any residual value. And the depreciation for a year would be 150,000. So debit depreciation expense 150,000 and credit accumulated depreciation 150,000. Okay? So with regards to our carrying value at this date, so syempre 1,500,000 minus the accumulated depreciation. Now, on December 31, 2019, as stated in the problem, the fair value of the asset was 1,687,500. So there was an increase. So there will be a revaluation as mentioned. So since hindi po binanggit kung anong method, 'di ba? Proportional ba siya or elimination, no? We will be using the proportional. Okay? So we need to proportionate again using this table. Okay? So our carrying value will include the costs of 1,500,000. Then the accumulated depreciation was 150,000. So yun po yung depreciation during the current year, and that is the first depreciation. So the carrying value, okay, on December 31, 2021 was 1,350,000. Now, considering the given fair value, okay, which is now our revalued amount, no, amounting to 1,687,500, we have an increase of 337,500. So this increase will be again proportionate based on una sa cost muna. So the cost is 1,500,000, then divide it with the 1,350,000, then yung nakuha nyo pong quotient, which is magkano yung quotient na yon. Okay, that would be 1.11, and so on, di ba? Times the increase na 337,500. Thus, the increase in our costs, okay, proportionate to the increase in total was 375,000. Okay? Then with regards to our accumulated depreciation, so your 150,000 divided by the 1,350,000. Okay, so that would be 0.111111, no? Multiplying it with the total increase, no? So the proportional increase in the accumulated depreciation will be 37,500. Okay? So to complete the table, no, our recoverable amount or the revalued amount, no, for the costs was already 1,875,000 dahil dun sa increase. Then as to the accumulated depreciation, it should be 187,500 na po. Okay, so pag trinay mong i-minus yung revised costs at saka accumulated depreciation, that will now be equal to the fair value of 1,687,500. Okay, so using the proportionate increase, no, we record now our revaluation. So we debit the delivery truck for the increase in cost na 375,000. Then we credit accumulated depreciation na 37,500. Okay? Then we credit the revaluation surplus na 337,500. Okay? So I hope that you can follow, ha. So if I asked you magkano na po yung value on December 31, 2019 after the revaluation, then your answer would be the 1,687,500. Okay? So again, if you have questions po, please let me know. Okay. So after 2019, let's proceed with our 2020. Okay, so on December 31, 2020, we will be recognizing the depreciation. So the depreciation will be revised, no, depending upon the um, new carrying value as of 2019. So it would be 187,000, which came from our um, revised, okay, na carrying value, which is the fair value na po, na 1,687,500, then divide it by 9. So bakit po divide it by 9? Kasi 'di ba, we have 10 years useful life, then natapos po yung 2019. That's the first revaluation. So 1 year lang po yung natapos. So 9 years pa po yung remaining useful life. Okay, so that's 187,000. So we debit depreciation expense 187,000, and we credit, no, accumulated depreciation 187,000. Okay, so that's our um, depreciation for 2020. Then remember, we need to transfer a portion of the revaluation surplus to retained earnings. Okay? So ito, meron na tayong old depreciation at saka new depreciation. Dati kasi in the discussion of the measurement after initial recognition, hindi ako nakapag-example na comparison nun para doon sa piecemeal transfer. No? So in this case, okay, we will be transferring it, no, the revaluation surplus to be debited at 37,500 and credit retained earnings 37,500. So yung shortcut, yung binigay ko sa inyo, no, last time. So the revaluation of 337,500, yun po yung revaluation sa previous slide, divided by the remaining useful life of 9. So that would be 37,500. So para mapakita ko yung original talagang computation based on IAS number 16, so ang sabi doon, old depreciation. So the old depreciation, kung babalikan niyo yung previous slide, was amounting to 1, magkano yung old depreciation natin? 150,000. Okay? So 150,000 po yung old depreciation natin. And then 'di ba ang new depreciation was 187,500. So pag dinidak natin 'yun, that's the transferred amount from the revaluation to retained earnings, which is also amounting to 37,500. You can refer back to our video lecture about measurement kung nalimutan niyo 'yun na binanggit ko. It was on the one of the slides, no, with regards to the transfer of revaluation to retained earnings. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, ha? So at the end of this year, 2020, so our carrying value po would be amounting to 1,500,000. Okay? Dahil po yung 1,875,000 na costs mula dun sa table natin ng revalued amount. Okay, then we deduct the accumulated depreciation of 375,000. So yan po yung 187,500 in our revalued amount column kung babalikan mo yung previous slide, plus the accumulated depreciation credited during 2020. Okay? So the remaining carrying value na lang po was 1,500,000. Okay, so I hope that you can still follow, no? And as to the revaluation surplus naman po, December 31, 2020, no? The original revaluation surplus was 337,500 less the um, transferred revaluation surplus to retained earnings na 37,500. So the remaining revaluation surplus was 300,000. Okay? So that's at the end of 2020. So continuing with our journey, no? Journey talaga, no? So on December 31, 2021, of course, we need first to determine the depreciation and transfer the revaluation. Okay, so depreciation expense debited 187,500. Same lang po kasi wala pa nagbabago, okay, in 2021. Except na after nitong entries na to, we will have a new recoverable amount, no? So we credit accumulated depreciation 187,500. Then the transfer of the revaluation surplus to retained earnings, so debit revaluation surplus, credit retained earnings 37,500. Okay? So bago tayo mag-revalue, identify muna natin yung carrying value. So on December 31, 2021, so our cost ulit, okay, less the accumulated depreciation na 562,500. So nanggaling po yon mula doon sa 375,000 ng 2020 plus the accumulated depreciation of 187,500 in 2021. Okay, so the carrying value na lang po natin as of December 31, 2021 was 1,312,500. Okay, and as to our revaluation surplus, we have 262,500 na lang po. Okay, so after the transfer natin na 37,500 ulit. Okay, times 2 yan kasi we have in 2020 at saka 2021. Kaya naging 75,000 yung dineduct dito sa computation. Okay? So that's our carrying value before we tend to compute for any impairment. Nagkaroon ng impairment, bakit? Kasi from the carrying value, we have a lower recoverable amount. So let's proceed in the next slide to determine it. Okay, so for our impairment, tignan po natin. So on December 31, 2021, no, we will be applying the concept kanina na if we have a revaluation, ubusin muna yung revaluation, then saka po tayo mag-charge to impairment. Okay. So as you can see, no, we get the carrying value as of December 31, 2021 na 1,312,500. Then given was the recoverable amount of 1,010,625. So it does not necessarily mean na bumaba siya, impairment agad yon. No, no. It is only a decrease muna na 301,875. In that decrease, you need first to reverse the remaining balance of the revaluation surplus. Kanina, before tayong nag-entry nitong 2021 na impairment, okay, we have determined that the remaining balance of the revaluation surplus was 262,500. So out of the decrease na 301,875, the 262,500 was covered by the revaluation surplus, which means that our impairment loss is only amounting to 39,375. Okay, so yan lang po yung impairment loss. That's why the entry, no, would be coming from, again, proportionating the decrease. Okay, kasi proportionate tayo kanina. So to be consistent, i-proportionate mo rin yon. So again, the cost was 1,875,000. Yung accumulated kanina was 562,500. The carrying value was 1,312,500. The revalued amount was 1,010,625 and the decrease is totaling 301,875. So proportionate mo rin ulit yung decrease para makompleto natin yung entry. So the costs over the carrying value times the decrease. So that would be a relative decrease to our cost na 431,250. Then, as to the accumulated depreciation na 562,500 divided by the carrying value, okay? Multiply it with our the decrease na 301,875. So it was a decrease in the accumulated depreciation na 129,375. Okay? So the new revalued amount column would be 1,443,750 for the costs dahil decrease yun ha, kaya nakabawas. Then, as to the accumulated depreciation, it is now 443,125, which will give us the revalued amount or recoverable amount na 1,010,625. Okay? So, to complete the entry, so yung decrease sa accumulated depreciation will be debited to the accumulated depreciation, 129,375. Then remember that the remaining balance of the revaluation surplus should be reversed. So kaya tayo nag-debit ng 262,500. Then the impairment loss to be recognized was amounting to 39,375. So ito po yung na-compute natin. And lastly, we have the delivery truck. No? So the delivery truck would be 431,250. Okay, which is the proportionate decrease in our costs. So any questions or clarifications, please let me know lang po. Okay? So that's our December 31, 2021 entry. And after that, the remaining carrying value was already the recoverable amounts. All right. So we're done with the 2021. To continue, no, we still have 2022. So, on December 31, 2022, bago ulit mag-revalue, no? Revalue tayo ng revalue. Bakit? Kasi as we have discussed, di ba, it will be because we have significant changes, di ba? As time goes by, every period. Kaya nag-annual tayo. But again, it depends upon as to the frequency, di ba, natin. So, on December 31, 2020, so, entry ulit for depreciation, 2022 pala, entry for depreciation. So, we debit depreciation expense, 144,375, and credit accumulated depreciation, 144,375. So nanggaling yon mula dun sa recoverable amount ng 2021 na 1,010,625 divided by the remaining useful life of 7 years na lang. So bakit 7 years? Kasi di ba 2019, 2020, 21. So 3 years nang nakalipas bago nag-2022. So at the beginning of 2022, we have 7 remaining useful life. So, yun po yung pinanggalingan ng depreciation na 144,375. Okay? So, bago tayo mag-revalue ulit, kasi ang sabit, the fair value was 1,095,000, no? So, nag-increase ulit. So, the carrying value po as of December 31, 2022, after depreciating the asset was 866,250 na. Okay? So, saan nagaling itong mga values? Itong 1,143,750, yan yung kanina, di ba, doon sa cost natin na revised na revalued amount. Then itong 577,500 mula sa accumulated depreciation na 433,125 plus the 144,375 in 2022. Okay? So kaya ang ating revised carrying value was 866,250. Okay? So we will be using that in 2022 pa rin, no, na recoverability. So applying the concept, 'di ba? It is just like problem number 3 already, no? Na from a revaluation, nagkaroon naman ng from an impairment, no? Kasi impairment yung nangyari in 2021, nagkaroon naman ng revival in 2022, no? So nag-survive ulit, no? Nag-increase. So here is now our 2022 December 31 revaluation. So let me present to you first, no, the computation of the revaluation surplus. So first, yung carrying value na kinumpute natin kanina sa previous slide, it was 866,250. Then compare it with the recoverable amount given na 1,095,000. Okay? So there was an increase. So hindi mo muna po ilalagay ha sa revaluation surplus. There should be an increase of 228,750. So since in 2021, may impairment loss tayo. Magkano ulit yung impairment loss kanina? Actually, 39,375. But we have recovered, no? Again, because of a lower depreciation. Okay, so kung naalala ninyo in 2022, previous slide, no, the revised depreciation natin was 144,375. Okay? But remember, our original, again, ang comparison natin ha, yung original depreciation at saka yung ating depreciation, even though there is a revaluation or impairment in between, no, is the revised depreciation as of the moment. Okay? So, ang na-recover na po natin, okay, or even pwede mong sundan in the previous entries, no? So ang na-recover na po natin because of lower depreciation, isang period lang po yung between nila, di ba? Kasi 2021 yon. So you can multiply it times 1, okay, was 5,625. Okay, so yun na po yung na-recover because of lower depreciation. So the limit na lang po for the impairment reversal ulit is the balance of 33,750. Okay? So from the increase, ni-reverse po yung or ni-recover yung impairment, thus the revaluation surplus was 195,000. Okay, so mamaya iti-test natin yan ha dun sa shortcut kung parehas ba na 195,000 talaga. Okay? So, since proportionate po tayo, so mag-proportionate muna tayo, no? So, for our costs, it was 1,443,750. Tignan nyo yung nasa previous slide kanina na cost natin. Then as to the accumulated depreciation, we still have 577,500 and the carrying value was the 866,250. Given the revalued amount of 1,095,000, we have an increase of 228,750. We proportionate it, no? So the costs divided by carrying value times the increase. So we have an increase in cost amounting to 381,250. Similar then sa accumulated depreciation. So the accumulated depreciation divided by the carrying value, okay, then multiply it with the increase. So the proportionate increase in our accumulated depreciation was 152,500. So to complete this, the cost revalued amount would be 1,825,000 na po. And the revised accumulated depreciation was 730,000 after applying the entry for the revaluation or the increase, okay, in 2022. Okay, so to complete the entry with debit delivery truck, 381,250. So yun po yung increase sa ating costs. Then there was an increase in accumulated depreciation of 152,500. So we credit accumulated depreciation 152,500. Then we have the recovery. So our recovery was 33,750. So credit po tayo ng recovery of the previous impairment, 33,750. And lastly, our revaluation surplus was 195,000. So that's the entry for our revaluation on December 31, 2022. Okay? So any questions or clarifications, please let me know lang po on our respective chat boxes. Okay? So finally, alam kong inaantay ninyo, no? Ipo-prove natin yung ginamit natin kaninang shortcut na dapat 195,000 yung revaluation surplus at the end of 2022. Ano ulit yung pagbabasihan? The carrying value without impairment. So the original cost was 1,500,000. And then, ang depreciation ng original natin was 150,000. ilang taon na ba nakalipas up to 2022? 2019, 20, 21, 22. 4 years na ang nakalipas, mahal ka pa rin niya. Charot! Okay, so 4 years po yung nakalipas. So that would be 600,000 for the accumulated depreciation, and thus the carrying value without the impairment should have been, no, kung wala pong impairment, walang revaluation in between, nag-cost model lang po tayo, it should be 900,000. Okay? Then compare it with the recoverable amount or fair value in 2022 na 1,095,000. So see, 'di ba? Ang dapat revaluation surplus natin is 195,000. So again, that is applicable only if again, you are asked of the revaluation surplus sa dulo, okay, nung period or even in between the periods, no, kung ayaw mo na or tamad ka mag-entry. Pero ayun nga po, no, why I am presenting the entries, it's because, no, it's easier for us to understand entries rather than memorizing formula. No, malito ka man sa formula, but if you know the entries and you put it in your heart, kung may heart ka, charot, okay, so sa puso at isipan natin, then matatatak sa atin yun na kahit pumikit tayo and we know the entry, how to compute for it, then we good na po tayo for this process. Okay? So that's it for our example number 4. No, it's a long journey about PPE, but I hope that you have learned. And again, kung may questions po kayo, please let me know. Okay? So with that, okay, I leave you all a great day. No? Maraming salamat sa pakikinig, and I'll see you all on our next video lectures. No? Okay, so maraming salamat, kamsahamnida, and if you have questions, please let me know sa chat box. Okay? Kamsahamnida, sayonara, God bless, bye-bye.